snow piled up quickly, covering the windows and doors. I had plenty of food and firewood, but the isolation was starting to get to me. I tried to keep myself occupied by reading books and playing solitaire. Still, the constant howling of the wind made it impossible to focus. As the days passed, I began to feel like I was being watched. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the feeling grew stronger with each passing hour. I tried to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then one night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my cabin. I listened carefully, trying to determine if it was just the wind, but the steps were too deliberate, too purposeful. I grabbed my flashlight and peeked out the window, but the snow was too thick to see anything. I spent the rest of the night huddled by the fire, clutching my flashlight like a lifeline. I didn't sleep at all, and by morning I was exhausted and paranoid. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump, and every gust of wind made my heart race. As the blizzard raged on, I became more and more convinced that I wasn't alone. I started to see shadows moving outside, just out of the corner of my eye. I heard whispers in the wind, too faint to make out, but too persistent to ignore. Finally, on the 5th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I bundled up in my warmest clothes and went outside, determined to find out what was going on. The snow was still coming down hard, but I pushed through, trudging through the drifts until I reached the edge of the woods. That's when I saw it, a figure, hunched over and shrouded in the tattered cloak, just barely visible through the swirling snow. It was facing away from me, but I could feel its gaze boring into me nonetheless. I stood there, frozen in terror, unsure what to do. Then the figure turned slowly, revealing a face that was twisted and gnarled, with eyes that glowed a sickly yellow. It grinned at me, showing razor-sharp teeth, and I knew at that moment that I was in grave danger. I ran back to the cabin as fast as I could, slamming the door shut and barricading it with whatever furniture I could find. The figure never came after me for some reason, but I could hear it outside, pacing and snarling like some kind of a wild animal. The blizzard finally let up on the 7th day, and I was able to dig my way out and make my way back to civilization. But I'll never forget the terror of those long, cold nights spent huddled in my cabin with that thing lurking just beyond the walls. I woke up to the sound of howling winds. The blizzard was here, and it was fierce. My friends and I planned a trip to the mountains for the weekend, hoping to enjoy the snow. But now we were stranded in the middle of nowhere. We had rented a small cabin, hoping to find shelter, but it was freezing inside and we were running out of supplies. The storm was so intense that we couldn't even see the outside, but we heard footsteps approaching. At first, we thought it was just the wind, but the footsteps grew louder, and then we heard a voice calling out to us. It was a man's voice, and it sounded desperate. We huddled together, trying to figure out what to do, and that's when we heard the knocking. It was a soft knock, but it was persistent, and it sounded like someone was trying to get in. One of my friends, Kelly, went to check, but we heard her scream. We ran to her, and when we came, we saw the man standing in front of her, his face twisted in anger. We tried to run. He chased us through the blizzard, and we could barely see where we were going. We were lost in the middle of nowhere, with no way out. The man kept following us, and we could hear him breathing down our necks. He was getting closer and closer, and we could see the outline of his face in the blizzard. We were exhausted and scared, and we didn't know what to do. Suddenly, one of my friends slipped and fell, and the man caught up with us. We thought we were done for, but then something strange happened. The man started to change. His face twisted and distorted until it was no longer human. It was as if he had become possessed by something evil. The possessed man caught us, and we were trapped in the blizzard with a monster. As we huddled together, waiting for the end, something miraculous happened. The wind started to die down, and the snow stopped falling. We looked up and saw the sky, clear, bright, and sunny. Suddenly the possessed man started to scream, and we could see his body twisting and contorting until it disappeared into the blizzard. We were left alone, in the middle of nowhere, with no explanation of what had just happened. We returned back to the cabin. The blizzard had stopped, but the terror was still with us. The next morning, we went home, still scared, but relieved. As I trudged through the snowstorm, my best friend Sarah by my side, I couldn't help but think we'd made a terrible mistake. We'd heard about the cave from some locals in town and thought it would be a fun adventure, a way to pass the time on a long winter break. But now, as we stumbled blindly through the blizzard, I wasn't so sure. The wind howled around us, the snow piling up with each step we took. We couldn't see more than a few feet in front of us, but we kept moving forward, our only guide, the faint outline of the mountain ahead. It was then that we saw it, a dark shape looming out of the blizzard, the entrance to the cave. It was bigger than we'd expected, and I could see a sense of foreboding settling over me like a heavy blanket. We stepped inside, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was colder inside the cave, and I shivered, not just from the temperature, but from something more profound, a sense of unease that I couldn't explain. As we explored deeper, the darkness seemed to close in around us, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Every noise echoed through the cavern, making me jump at every sound. Sarah was braving the divers, but even she looked nervous. Then we heard it, a low moan that seemed to come from deep within the cave. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before, a sound that made my skin crawl. Sarah looked at me, her eyes wide with fear, and I knew we had to get out of there. We turned to leave, but the cave had other plans. The entrance we'd come through was gone, replaced by a solid wall of rock. We were trapped. Panic set in as we realized we were lost, with no way out. The darkness pressed in around us, and the moaning grew louder, closer. We could feel something watching us, something that wanted to keep us there forever. We stumbled through the cavern, our flashlights flickering as the batteries died. The darkness swallowed us, and I could feel the cold seeping into my bones. We were going to die there, lost in the endless maze of the cave. But then, just as all hope seemed lost, we saw a glimmer of light in the distance. We raced toward it, hope swelling within us, and burst through a narrow opening back into the blizzard. We collapsed in the snow, gasping for breath as the cave disappeared behind us. Only then did we notice the strange symbols etched into the rock around us, a warning from those who had gone before us. We never spoke of the cave again, but I'll never forget the feeling of being trapped in that endless darkness, of the cold and the moaning that seemed to come from nowhere. I still wonder what secrets lay hidden within that mysterious cavern. But I know one thing for sure: I'll never go back.
Thank you for listening to our story. We hope it gave you a good scare. If you like it, please like, share and subscribe to our channel for more spooky stories like this one.